Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Does anyone here have any interesting stories about strangers? I'll go first. Be me about 3 years ago, driving across the US to visit family. Stop in Arizona for the night. Take a walk around the area surrounding the hotel at 1 a.m. Suddenly hear someone yell out, "Hi, Anon!" I'm more than 2,000 miles from home. Look behind me and see a black Honda Civic with 3 teens I've never seen in my life smiling at me, waving. How do you know my? They speed off. I've never seen them since. Pick-related, very similar to the car they were in.
Gang stalkers, or maybe you have a pretty common name.
That's the thing, though. Not only is my name very uncommon in the US, it has a different spelling that makes it more obscure. Yes, I know this doesn't affect the pronunciation, but it still adds to the obscurity. So what are the chances that I look like someone on the other side of the country with the same obscure name? And to address the gang stalkers possibility, I can't say for certain that doesn't explain what happened, but 1. What made them drop their alleged pursuit of me? And 2. Just for fun, a what if? For how long were they following me? Are they still? Spooky shit, man.
I had a week off work, and when I came back, my boss handed me this piece of paper. That had every Jack Nicholson movie handwritten in the order that they came out and the production company that made them. I asked what it was, and he said a customer came in frenzied, waving the piece of paper, and handed it to my boss and said, "Make sure Anon gets this." Don't know who it was. I speak to heaps of customers every day, but I don't recall ever mentioning to any of them that I would like them to do this. I don't even like Jack Nicholson that much. I'm pretty indifferent to him. It's just an extremely strange thing to do, and I don't get the motive for a stranger to do this for me. My housemates and friends love it though, so I got a cool keepsake, I guess.
Literally bumped into a man in the middle of the night who looks similar to Charlie No Face. No nose, half a tongue, cauterized hole where an eye used to be, unnatural looking hair. Whatever happened, you can see the outline of one of his hands over his mouth and a scar on his face exactly where one half of his finger should still be. It wasn't fire, but something about electricity and something caustic. He looked like a ghoul and could hardly speak straight as he wasn't used to his half-tongue yet. Now I bumped into this guy, not the other way around. His reaction was pure terror. The way he was acting made me instantly think I bumped into someone mentally handicapped, as he couldn't speak straight and seemed to be overreacting but also shaking. First I asked if he was lost, and he shook his head no, so I apologized because all of his recent trauma made me wonder if he had brain damage. He kinda staggered right then, so I asked him if he needed water. He actually did. So I took him to my porch, which was 20 feet away. What I found out, though, as this guy regains his wits, was I was the 8th person he bumped into that day. Someone even decked him because he looked like a monster. And that was only person number 2. He remembered he had to figure out how to sign 7. He couldn't say it, as he kept trying to use his 2 missing fingers. Why was this man out so late? He said it was because it was time to learn how to be who he is now, and he's been out since 6 a.m. It was about 3:30 a.m., and he just left a party. He'd only been able to go outside less than a week ago, but it was always with others until now. The man was just trying to do his errands and visit his friend on his birthday because he might not have someone to depend on. He knew it was going to be bad, but not scaring the shit out of 7 people bad. If it wasn't for the guy who punched him making up to him by taking him to and from a store the whole day, probably would have been ruined on an emotional level, and frankly saved him so much time he got to do a lot more things, which unfortunately included more scares. Most interesting person I've ever literally bumped into. Guy doesn't even look like a ghoul now. Somehow his hair growing back out fixed all of those problems. As you can tell, he's just a damaged human now.
My friend and I had just got done doing karaoke at a bar in New York and got on a late-night subway train. When we got on, there was a guy with normal clothes on, except for the fact that his face was covered in cloth, sort of like a niqab, except it was loose and made of a t-shirt or something. He had a pad of post-it notes and began garnishing the empty seats and his surroundings with them. We talked after, and both of us got a weird vibe from the guy. My friend offered me a piece of gum and I took it, and the guy across from us stuck out his hand expectantly. My friend said, "Oh, you want some gum?" and put a stick in his open palm. He offered a post-it note, seemingly as a payment of sorts, and my friend declined. The guy shrugged and ate the gum, and the vibe seemed to ease up a bit. Things relaxed, until another guy showed up. He was wearing what looked like business casual attire and just immediately started destroying all of this guy's post-it decorations out of some spontaneous rage. I get that they were annoying to look at, but this guy just gave off the impression that he was a nemesis or something. Things got really tense and the guy with the face covering just emoted a look of "da fuck man" with his eyes and moved farther down the car, away from us all. The other guy just glared at him and then at us, as if to see if we would stand up for our newfound friend. Shit felt weird and almost on the verge of something violent, but luckily it was our stop and we got off. The first guy was probably schizo or LARPing or something, but it was still weird as hell. Both him and the other guy's random object hatred.
Since the beginning of the year, I've been seeing a lot of sketchy, supernatural-esque and out-of-place people randomly at night, particularly when driving. I'm wondering if it's fragments of dimensional shift, because when I see these people I get a strong sense that they're not actually there. But in all instances of this, I was with another person who also saw them and agreed that it gave them an awful feeling and chills. So this must be part of objective reality and I'm not just going schizo, right? Here are my experiences so far. Early Jan. Strange man in a brown leather trench coat standing in the middle of his yard in the afternoon, not doing anything, just standing there. Face is literally grotesque, and it felt like he was staring at me as I drove past, but I tried not to look too long because I got this strong sense that I shouldn't know he's there. Daughter was in the car with me, and she was the one who noticed him first and instantly was scared shitless and convinced she just saw Freddy Krueger or something. Late May. Driving through the mountains to set up at a flea market at around 4 a.m. along the highway, out of a right side of my headlights, I notice a man just ahead stumbling onto the road and seemingly trying to run into my car. I swerve to the left, and as my headlights are moving out of view, me and my GF get a quick glimpse of his face. And it wasn't actually there. It looked like a blurred image, like when they mask someone's face on TV. On election night after voting before the polls closed on my way home, about 2 blocks from my polling place, another man was standing in the middle of his yard in a small suburban neighborhood with a hoodie covering his whole head, and the string pulled so that his face was covered. Wasn't smoking or walking a dog, was just standing there staring at us in the car, as we were at a stop sign literally in the dead center of his yard like the trench coat guy. Girlfriend was with me and instantly started screaming when she saw him.
Don't know if this counts, but I had a strange encounter with someone driving a month ago. Driving to friend's house, driving down an isolated country road at around 6 or 7 a.m. Lots of vineyards and trees, etc. Going the speed limit. No one is on the road save for one car ahead of me. Some car that looked similar to a Nissan Leaf was in front of me for a few miles. Car is a good distance away, more than 900 feet in front of me. Glance at my phone to change song on the playlist. Look up a couple seconds later and slam on the brakes. Car in front of me just flat out stopped his car, about an inch away from his bumper. He starts driving again after he sees I'm looking. Figure it's just some boomer trying to play cowboy, but it really pissed me off. Wanted to fucking kill this prick.
Okay, holy shit. I actually had an encounter like this a couple of nights ago. I was walking to the gas station, ran into some kid in a hoodie and walked by. Didn't think much of it, but I did get creeped out, and my mind instantly went to, this isn't a person, this is some skinwalker or some shit. On my way back, walk by him again. Figure he must just be taking a walk back home where he came from. Greet him, but he says nothing and walks by. This time, get a more threatening vibe from him and pick up the pace. Now here's where it gets spooky. Get near my house, a playground next to a tree line on the way there. Get a really bad vibe, turn around. The dude is standing there behind a tree. Not just standing, waiting. Stop dead in my tracks and stare off for a good minute. He walks off into the tree line. Suddenly I realized that there's no path he could have taken to get there before me. Beeline it back home and lock my doors. That night, I had the worst nightmare of my life and woke up in a cold sweat. Nightmare involved 2 of my friends going missing. Felt like less of a dream and more of a déjà vu premonition.
Yeah, they are waiting for something. In my experiences, it seems like they might be interdimensional entities that are trying really hard to break through but haven't been able to fully get there yet. It feels like there's a thin layer of physical law keeping them from actually actively pursuing anything in this space. But I can sense that they are able to see everything here and desperately want to get here so they can cause chaos. Each time I get a sense of impending doom, like these things are getting really close to being here.
I have a problem. Some of you might recognize this story from years ago, as the part you're about to read was something I shared here several times. But part 2 changes things. Early 2000s. Was 9 years old. Dad was in the military and went overseas to Greece for a year. A man comes into my mom's work. She sells insurance. He asks if she's married, and she explains that her husband lives in Greece. He took this to mean they were separated and started to hit on her, coming in each day with gifts. Mother explains that she isn't single. My dad is just on rotation in Greece. He starts to show up at places she goes to in our small town. She gets a restraining order, but he just stays the minimum distance away. One day we go to my school play. Come home. Our house had been broken into. The back door is wide open. Mother's lingerie and panties strewn everywhere. I was already pretty anxious about the situation as a whole, but this terrified me. With no father in the house and mother at work, it was either me home alone with my equally young brothers, or my teenage uncle who came once in a while. Towards the end of the year, I am informed that the car parked on the hill behind our house is actually my mother's stalker. He'd been camped out there all along watching us. This shaped me. It had both negative and positive effects, one me, if they can be called that. Paranoia, distrust of strangers, agoraphobia. On the positive side, it gave me an interest in adrenaline. Scary movies, fascination with morbidity. All year I had been binge-watching unsolved mysteries, with a focus on similar stories. I grew up to become a horror filmmaker, and still listen to creepypastas and narrations about similar situations. The problem? Apparently it wasn't true. I went to visit my extended relatives a few days ago. Lots of stories about my mother come up. She and I are already on bad terms. They reveal that it was faked. My teenaged uncle was there that night of my school play. He had joined us as we got into the car. My mother claimed she forgot something. Went back inside. 15 minutes later, I came back. More than enough time to set up the fake break-in. My brothers and I were sent to our room. The police had never been called. Apparently, they hadn't been called at all for the entire year, despite what my mother said. That night, we were all in the living room sleeping there, Uncle with his gun to protect us. Mom kept looking out the window, claiming she saw the man standing across the street, refused to let me look outside. Uncle never saw it. The whole thing was apparently her looking for attention. Perhaps there was a grain of truth in the man coming to her work, and she blew it out of proportion because no one took her seriously. Hard to say. All I know is that she almost definitely faked the break-in herself, and that the man camping in the car was fake. Which makes sense. Looking back, the car never moved. For this to be true, the man had to have never driven away ever in the entire year. It's hard for me to deal with on so many levels. My mom is a chronic liar and is always trying to get attention. Pretending she downed a bottle of pills as an hero attempt, for example, and we don't talk anymore as a result. But to find out that this entire year of terror and fear and anxiety was a lie is devastating. I was so sick that year, and she'd make me stay home from school with no one else there. But being sick was only being caused from the stress of thinking there was a man constantly outside waiting to strike. Even the supposed positives, my fascination with horror, are now derived from some lie. I feel like I am made from lies, and I don't know how to process that.
Wow, that sucks, Anon. And what happened with your father?
He came back at the end of the year. We moved to California and put the thing behind us. We were never close to begin with, and there has been some doubt cast on the reasons why he left. At the time, he claimed it was just because that's what his orders were. But in his entire career, he'd never had orders lasting a single year, never anywhere near Europe, and the path he was on, recruiter, made no sense in Greece. My mother claimed a few years ago that the real reason is that he suspected her of infidelity with my teenage uncle, who is my dad's little brother, and needed to get away. No one else in the family heard this version of the story, and my mother claimed this to me years later when she and my father were talking divorce. It seemed something she made up to try and turn me against him. Was already pretty against him, though.
A few months ago, I finished some contract work in Cody, Wyoming. Nothing special, just construction. The point is that I was near prime hunting areas, with just enough passing knowledge of hunting and a way to tell a story while drunk. I frequented a few bars and basically told in a woods stories there as though they were my own. Rundown is basically, get to the bar, have a few drinks, mingle with people. If conversation steers to hunting, tell a few stories. Generally just tell weird shit that happened to me. Never mention missing friends or strangers or anything. Usually just weird animal carcass, can you believe it? Got me a few free drinks from strangers, which was my intent. Fast forward 8 months, nearing the end of my contract. In the middle of one of my stories, an older Indian fellow walks in the bar, gets a drink and hears me talking. The whole while he's dead-ass staring at me. Story trails off because he weirded me out. Later that night, I finished my drinks and called a cab. Waiting outside when the Indian taps my shoulder, asks, "When was the last time you went hunting in that area?" Tell him it was 4 or 5 years. I lost interest in hunting. He nods and says, "You're lucky. Don't go back there for a few more years." He heads off down the sidewalk as my cab pulls up. He was probably just fucking with me, but still.
Posting my recent story. Be me about 2 months ago camping next to an abandoned oil field plant. 2 buddies with me, Caleb and Tyler. Tyler is new to /K/shit, but he's pretty cool. Screw around and shoot in a ravine nearby. Go back for lunch dinner. About 6-ish. Sun is beginning to set. Tyler wants to shoot my AK a little more. Okay, sure. He mag dumps. My dad calls me and tells us to stop shooting for the night because our neighbor, who is supposed to be the next sheriff, thinks I'm shooting a machine gun or some dumb shit. Okay, call it a night of shooting. Later on, me and Tyler go to get firewood while Caleb watches the camp. On our way back, Caleb runs up to us and tells us he saw someone running out of the plant and towards my aunt's abandoned house, but he didn't shoot him because all he had near him was my AR. I don't believe him, but we decided to check out the plant and the house now because we were going to do it anyway. Clear all the buildings, nothing unusual. Leave the plant, go back to camp to get our gas masks and the rest of our gear. Head to Aunt's house, go to Uncle's reloading barn first because I wanted to loot some vintage gun magazines, but most were inaccessible now due to a fallen shelf. Oh well, take what we can and go to Barnes. Get to one with a freezer full of years-old rotted meat. Have to wear gas masks to go and go to garage. Find "fuck you" written on the side of a car's body. I write cheeky breeky next to it. Go to the house. Yell, "If there's anyone in here, come out now." After a while of looking around, we find a brand new, recently opened Coca-Cola can. Nope. Leave a little after that and keep careful watch over the camp. There is now what I'm nearly certain is supposed to be a shitty meth cooker sitting in the driveway. Maybe he wasn't fucking with us after all. This took place in 1909 when my great-grandfather Harley was 7. He lived deep in the Maine woods with his parents and 2 siblings. Harley's father was away for a couple of weeks due to his job, and it was the beginning of winter. He helped his mother care for the family home and his younger siblings. One day, he was helping his mom hang some laundry out in the cold when she fell ill and fainted upon entering the house. Harley did his best to care for her, but after a couple days, it seemed his family had all become very sick. He was fine. He recalled his mother telling him that he had to take a journey into town to fetch a doctor. The walk was 10 miles or so, and he was only 7. He had to be strong as he was the man of the house with his father gone. He bundled himself up and headed out early in the morning. It was cold and began to snow, and Harley started to doubt he could make it. He said the snow started blinding him, and his feet were so frozen that it was hard to keep going. Suddenly, a friendly dog greeted him, and behind him a man. Harley was relieved. The man wore a strange coat that didn't look warm enough. It looked like leather and had fur around the collar. The stranger introduced himself as Finn and asked him where he was heading. He said he was going the same way, and they walked side by side through the storm along with Finn's dog. Harley said they talked and talked, although he didn't remember what about, but he did recall feeling warm and safe and full of energy. The journey flew by, and as they approached the small town, Harley looked around to see that the dog was gone. When he looked back at Finn, he had disappeared as well. They were quite a ways out of the woods, and there was nowhere he could have gone to. Harley was confused, but soon found someone to speak with. Unfortunately, they couldn't go back out for a while due to a huge snowstorm. Sadly, my great-grandfather's mother and siblings passed away. Now the story didn't end there. This twist has always boggled my mind, and I just wish I had the answers. Harley married my great-grandmother Sarah, and they named their firstborn son Finn, after Harley's Angel in the Woods. Finn became a pilot against his mother's wishes. In 1941, he crashed his plane flying solo, and my grandmother couldn't speak his name again until she was old and on her deathbed. I saw an old photo of Finn in his leather bomber jacket with fur around the collar. I always wondered if he had been the angel that saved my grandfather's life.
One of the dumbest stories I have involves a pair of idiots trying to one-up each other. 2004, I rented a town home. Party all the time. Few acquaintances who were legit nuts. One later went on a 3-state killing spree. Another drove a car through a home. A third in jail for sodomy. The older brother of sodomy guy was super crazy. Cracked sodomy brother in the head with a wrench and stabbed his buddy in the face with a screwdriver over a frozen baked potato. Kind of crazy. Kind of guy who shows up to the party and you kind of can't make him leave without fear of some bullshit getting started. Shows up to a small little get-together drunk and on speed. Naive young friend named Brent and him get into argument over who is a bigger, braver man. Brent has taken 14 coricidine and has been drinking vodka all day, thinks he could ever win in the game of stupid machismo. First starts the cigarette game, putting a lit cigarette between each other's arms to see who flinches first. Cigarette goes out. They want to play the knife game, but I put a kibosh on that shit. Thumb wars, staring contests, arm wrestling, neither one would back down. We must find out who has the bigger cojones. Everyone is white. They split and chug an old leftover 40-ounce that they found outside. Finally, around 4 a.m., they want to put an end to the whole thing with one final test of cojones. I bet I will put my balls in the microwave and turn it on. I'll do it if you do it first. Okay, fuck you, it's on. Anon, how do you run your microwave with the door open? Explain that it is impossible without breaking the microwave and probably catching my house on fire. The microwave sits on top of a rolling dishwasher countertop, plugged in. Next to it is the toaster. They both glance at the toaster and then to me, fucking go for it. Cojones bro tells Brent he will go first if the other guy does it. Okay, alright then, you first. WTF, you said you'd do it first. Finally, I step in. Fellas, there's 2 slots in the toaster. You both can do it at the same time. Bluff called. Both faces go white. For the cojones. Walk into other room rolling with a screwdriver in the face, buddy. Keep in mind this is after the screwdriver in the face bit. I did not witness it and there was no camera. Flip phones could barely take a selfie. I know they still did it though. How I know? They both screamed in tandem. There is no way they could time it so perfectly. I hear the sound of a toaster. Not even a millisecond goes by. Bro! Fuck! Loud crash, louder crash. Holy shit, it's like 4 in the morning. I'm gonna get evicted over this shit. Run into the kitchen. Both are laying on their backs with their hands on their cojones. Toaster entrails spread all over. The rolling dishwasher has rolled a good 4 feet from the wall. The microwave was plugged in, has been yanked off of the countertop and onto Brent's leg. Mountain bike has fallen over on cojones bro. Spoke still spinning, clicking over and over his ear. Neither give any shit, the only concern is their scorched cojones. Both get themselves together. Arguing starts back up. I put mine in further than you. Brent is nearly in tears, thinking, when will this end? WTF bro, we both just put our cojones in a toaster. Yeah, but look at my burn mark and compare it to yours. Now both of them want to turn to a biased outsider. Look at our cojones, which is more burned. Laughing our asses off, me and Buddy tell them both to fuck off with that shit. Brent is having a breakdown, unable to comprehend how one person could be so stubborn. You say you are a better man than me, even though I met every challenge and even burned my huevos in the toaster. It's not about the huevos, it's about the cojones.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.